Okay, so I want to welcome everyone who's on and coming on, and thank my good friend Mr. Kazanowicz for reminding me that it was open connection, but we didn't say anything horrible, so there's no problem there. I want to thank you all for taking a few minutes of time on this beautiful Friday afternoon. What we want to do is just let you know what's going on with the healthcare, with the city and all. And live and en route is our president, Mark Cannizzaro, and he's pulled off to the side of the road at the rest area. So he's not a hazard to himself or anybody else. And he would like to say a few words before I get started. So Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Good afternoon, everyone. And again, as Doug mentioned, I'm traveling today to an out-of-town wedding, but I did feel it was important enough to pull over to the rest stop just to greet you and say hello. And I'm sure Doug is going to do an excellent job explaining where we are at this moment. However, several people have contacted me and asking me why it is that we, as a union CSA, voted yes to make an amendment to the administrative code. We have been working since the beginning of this with attorneys, as well as an arbitrator and some consultants from Siegel and Siegel. Doug, is it Siegel? Am I right with that?
Siegel is our actuary, yes.
And Millman, is that the other group?
Millman is the city's actuary.
Okay, so it's Siegel, and to work on what would be the best options at this time. The biggest concern, and the reason that CSA voted yes to petition the city council to change the administrative code, is what we are told is the real possibility that without a change to the administrative code, there will be the Medicare Advantage program or some other program without the option to purchase up for the senior care program. So what I am mainly concerned about and mostly concerned about is the very real possibility that when this is all said and done, senior care will not even exist as an option. And when we first started talking about this many months ago, and we had the retirees both in CSA and on a Zoom, one of the biggest things was to provide to maintain the option for them to stay with their current healthcare plan. So we take this extremely, extremely seriously. But again, I did not want to be faced with the prospect of losing the current plan and having no option to purchase up for it. I hope that reasoning is sound for you, and we're certainly willing to and open to take questions and hear from people. But Doug is going to provide, I think at some point after this webinar, he's going to provide you with a document from the MLC that explains that more clearly and in greater detail. But that's the reason, and that's the reason that I pulled over on the side of the road to make sure I could speak to you and see you here today. But please just keep in mind that I take this extremely seriously, and I'm trying to do the best that I possibly can for everyone involved. And B, in the very near future, I will be one of you. I will be joining the ranks of the retirees and not too far off from Medicare eligible. So I certainly wouldn't do anything to harm you, and certainly would never do anything to harm myself intentionally. So thank you all so much. Have a great day. And Doug, you can take it away from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So what I want to start with is just to let everybody know what's going on with what we went through for the last year. We being the city and the MLC, we're promoting and working to implement a Medicare Advantage plan that would save some significant funds to the city and allow the city to continue to honor its commitment of premium-free health care for all active and retired employees. Through a lot of legal action, the original Advantage plan was delayed. In the middle of July, Empire Blue Cross's parent company, Anthem, which has now been changed to Elevance for some reason. Elevance said to the city of New York, unless you can 100% guarantee that you will implement this proposed Medicare Advantage plan July 1st of 2023, we're going to pull away and we don't want any part of it. The city rightfully decided that they could not make that commitment. And why couldn't they make the commitment? Because there are a number of court actions that will be heard later this fall. They were originally scheduled for September, but they're now scheduled for October. And without knowing the resolution of those court cases, how could anybody, especially the city of New York, commit to something if it was going to be prohibited or could not be implemented the way it was originally done? So, and Empire is the dominant nationwide player. They pulled out, and as a result, the original Medicare Advantage plan is dead, and it's not being implemented, as we spent a year discussing. What came out of that is what Mr. Canzero has been mentioning, is a proposal to change the city administrative code in such a way that the city and unions can select a benchmark plan. I'm going to try to share this document here, if I can find it. Okay, so what I've got here is what I sent with the link, and this is the proposed change to the city administrative code. It's section 12-126, and this is the section that deals with providing health care. And you'll see underlined the proposed change. So what it would say is the city will pay the entire cost of health insurance coverage for city employees, city retirees, and their dependents, not to exceed 100% of the full cost of HIP HMO on a category basis, which is where it ends now. The new language is, or in the alternative, in the case of any class of individuals eligible for coverage by a plan jointly agreed upon by the city and municipal labor committee, to be a benchmark plan for such class, not to exceed the full cost of such benchmark plan is applied to such class. So what that is saying is that the city and the MLC can set a benchmark plan for Medicare eligible retirees. This, in my mind, is just putting into the city code what has been generally accepted practice for the 30+ years I've been around CSA. Once Medicare came along, the city reimburses Medicare Part B. Further down in this section of the code, it describes the city's commitment to do that in 100%. But there is no language in there that codifies the fact that for Medicare eligible retirees, the generally accepted benchmark has been either the HIP VIP plan or the GHI senior care plan. For many years, people living outside of the area or who wanted a different plan were able to pay an additional amount over what the city was paying for HIP VIP and senior care for a plan through Aetna, through United Healthcare, through Empire Blue Cross, through Humana, both pre-Medicare and post-Medicare. That has been generally accepted practice. Well, along comes Medicare Advantage proposal. The retiree group's attorney notes the section of the code. The judge agrees, so that is what held up the plan. So what the request is, what the request to City Council is that the city and unions be able to set a benchmark plan for each category of employee. Now, the other document that I gave you was the draft agreement between the Municipal Labor Committee and the City Office of Labor Relations. And if you go down to the bottom part of this second paragraph, it defines what they agreed to be the two categories. The two categories will be active and pre-Medicare retirees as one category, and Medicare eligible retirees as a second category. Within the MLC and fund directors and all, there was a concern that if this wasn't clearly spelled out, the city might at some point try to play different sectors of the labor force off against each other. It's not unreasonable to think that they might say that, for example, uniformed employees, police, fire, sanitation, generally known as the uniformed employees who will bargain quite often together, that they might be a class separate and distinct from the non-uniform or civilian employees. And of course, that wouldn't go over well and should not be done. It could also maybe be that they would take people from employees or retirees from different agencies and try to give them different plans. That would not be allowed. The only two categories that will be allowed if this goes through is active employees and active and pre-Medicare retirees and Medicare eligible retirees. So that is what is being looked at there. The document that Mark mentioned, I will send out shortly. When I post this recording and send it out, I will put that document there, and we'll also post it on the website. It's the background and explains the MLC's position. The big concern, or a big concern, is also when you only have one health plan listed as a benchmark, what happens if that health plan no longer exists? Everything is predicated on there being a HIP HMO insurance plan. What if somewhere down the line, Emblem Health decides, you know what? We're not going to offer the HIP HMO plan anymore. So we're going to offer something different. If it's not the HIP HMO, it's not the benchmark plan for the city. And now how do they determine what the cost will be and what they will pay for employee health care? It could be that if there is no benchmark, then there is no mandate that the city pay 100% of the health plan, in which case they could start charging premiums. So the design and the thought behind this is to protect us for now and going forward. Every one of the MLC union constituent presidents is a retiree in training. They are looking forward to retirement, and they want to ensure that they get as close as possible to what current retirees have when they retire. The other thing that's important to note is that there is nothing in the administrative code that specifies that whatever plan you're in when you're active is the plan you have for the rest of your life when you retire. Because senior care is not GHI-CBP, it's a version for Medicare eligibles. So there's nothing here that guarantees a particular plan. It just says that the city will pay, will provide premium-free health care to all active and retired employees and their dependents. So that's where we are there. The last thing before I take some questions, I know there's a lot of questions, and I will answer every single one of them. My goal is to provide you with information, not to, put a spin on it or anything. I'll answer all questions the best I can. There is some talk, and there is work being done on reimagining, if you will, a Medicare Advantage plan, not provided by the Alliance of Empire and Emblem, but by another insurance firm. Aetna was the second place finisher to the Alliance of Empire and Emblem. At the last time, since no contract was ever signed with those two firms, the city is free to now go and work with the next eligible bidder, which is Aetna. There have been extensive and long conversations. There's nothing really official released yet, but from what I have seen, the proposals that are being put together by Aetna are much better for retirees than what were originally proposed. For example, the out-of-pocket maximum that was going to be about $1,400, just about a little bit over $1,000. The plan copay on top of Medicare's is less than what it would have been. And one thing that affects our CSA retirees greatly is that there would be no copay on physical therapy visits. So if this plan is ever implemented, it's a much more generous plan than what we had originally proposed, and that was also a generous plan. So that's where we are with Medicare Advantage. That's where we are with the current plan, with a proposal, with what's going on with the request to change the administrative code. And I just wanted everybody to have an idea of what we're really talking about here. So I'm going to answer the questions here. If you have additional questions, please enter them in the chat. I wish we could have done this with everybody being able to talk, but we had close to 1,600 people interested in participating. I see about 920 actually are on. So with that volume, we didn't have the technology available to us to allow that. And so rather than doing it 6 times, it was 1 time this way, and then we could issue follow-up questions if we need to. So there is no new plan, but some of the questions here are regarding the options with senior care. As Mark mentioned, the intention of the city and of the MLC in this whole process is that there will remain the option for people to remain in your current senior care plan. What the cost of that would be, I do not know, because we do not know what the cost savings to the city would be and what the cost of senior care will be when that new plan, if it's approved and adopted by both the city and the unions. We have no idea what that cost will be until it's approved of. There will be an opt-out provision. That's what CSA has worked for. That's why CSA supported this, is so that there would be an opt-out provision. The comment here mentions if you opt out and leave the system completely and pay your own way. If you do that, as this person indicates, you would lose any Medicare Part B and IRMA reimbursements. The city is only required to reimburse Medicare Part B and IRMA if it applies, if you are covered by a city-provided health plan. That's why the senior care supplement, the HIP VIP, those are all important, because if you're in one of those plans, the city is providing you health care. It's costing them less than if they paid the 100% of the cost. So they're reimbursing your cost to be in Medicare. And as the administrative code says, there is no provision not to reimburse IRMA. So it's any applicable Part B premium, and that's what you get. That's what you get. Okay, we've explained why CSA is in favor of changing this section. The question is, retirees were promised free medical another substandard plan like the MAP, the retirees were promised a choice of plans, including a premium-free health plan. You will always have the opportunity to buy up to senior care. The question is, why would it block from the purchase up? The plan that's set forth by the city and the union would not block you from opting out of whatever they decide is a benchmark plan and then purchasing the current plan at the additional charge. As I said, this has been standard practice for both active and pre-Medicare retirees and Medicare eligible retirees since I've been around CSA, which is about 30 years. It was just never put into the code and codified. We have retirees who are not yet Medicare eligible. They leave Greater New York because that's, what they choose to do. And by leaving the area, there are no Emblem Health participating providers. So they decide that they're going to buy an Aetna EPO, exclusive provider organization, which means you have to use Aetna doctors. Problem is the price for that plan, the last I looked, for a family to be an Aetna with the prescription benefit is about $6,000 a month. But we do have people that will choose to buy that plan. So you'll always have the opportunity to buy up to the plan. Somebody's making a comment here about, an individual case where someone is in rehab and all debating the questions or the parameters within the plan. We can talk about that offline. Why isn't our union fighting for our rights? You're submitting to the MLC. Mr. Canizero answered that one, and this is from an anonymous attendee. So there's again anecdotal stories. A lot of these anecdotal stories are saying that there are, you didn't need approvals. Well, as in the original proposed plan, and in whatever plan will come along, if you are in an emergency situation, person here is relating a AFib event and almost had a stroke and being in an emergency room. Well, that's an emergency, and any test that is needed to determine what's going on and what the proper course of treatment is will automatically be approved. If I'm sitting there and I'm exhibiting signs of a stroke, they're not going to wait 3 days or 2 days or 1 day to get an approval for a CAT scan. They're going to do the test, and that will go through. So it's the routine type of test that would be subject to an approval. And those are usually done within a couple of days, well before you can schedule the appointment. Will there be coverage for hospital stays in all hospitals? Sloan and special surgery, I have not seen anything about that. I'm sure they will be. Both of those hospitals were in network with the proposed plan. They will be in that. They'll be in the new plan. I would almost be certain. Again, anonymous attendee wants to be certain of what Mark Canizero described as the actual stated reason why CSA voted yes. You heard it from the person to cast the votes. And we're working to do everything we can to maintain the choice and maintain quality healthcare for everyone. As I've said, we don't know when we're going to see a benchmark plan. There has been no concrete proposal put forward for review. The MLC, both, first the executive committee, then the steering committee, and then the general membership all have to have presentations, understand what's going on, and then take a vote before it will go through. Even if hospitals accept the plan, individual doctors do not. there will be a much improved way to verify that doctors will accept the plan than the sort of clanky one that we had before. We don't know what the cost is to stay where you are. Somebody says he was told Aetna already backed out. I haven't heard that. I'd like to, send me an email. I'd like to follow up on that. What does it mean for those who live outside of New York? What it means is that any plan that would be adopted as a benchmark would be good nationwide, as the current senior care plan is. If there was only one plan offered, and if by chance that was the HIP VIP plan, then everybody'd have to live in the 5 boroughs of New York, or at least come back here for their health care. So we know that our retirees are mobile. They both move out of the area and also vacation out of the area. So having something that can be used nationwide is important. Let's see what else we have here. The comment that Medicare Advantage plans only focus on profit. There was something I saw, I think it was in Forbes a week or so ago, and it was a very positive light on Medicare Advantage. If I can find that, I'll send the link to people. Only HMO being proposed, hard enough to find a doctor down here. The person happens to be in Florida. The PPO for those who are in Medicare allows you to go to any doctor who accepts Medicare, whether or not they're part of whichever insurance company sponsors it. Again, you don't want an advantage plan. There will be, as Mark has stated clearly, the opportunity to remain in your current senior care plan and pay, as long as you're willing to pay whatever the additional charge to the city is. Any proposed advantage plan would be a PPO, not an HMO. That's a little difficult sometimes for doctors to understand, because the traditional model of Medicare Advantage is an HMO, restrictive networks, approval for everything. The plan that the city designed and worked with First Empire and the Emblem, and is now working with Aetna on, would be a PPO, which would mirror as closely as possible what is currently in senior care. Senior care will continue to be offered, and would be at an additional cost. If you opted not to go into Medicare Advantage before, you have to say no again. Yes, you will have to go through that whole process again when and if it is implemented. It's premature to do anything about that at this point, because there is no new plan to opt out of. Any opt-out for the old plan never was implemented, so there's nothing there. Hopefully, when and if a new plan is approved, there will be a more streamlined way to submit an opt-out request and get the confirmations. What about prescriptions? If it's an advantage plan, the prescription plan would come with it and would be compatible with all of the new Medicare requirements for prescription plans. $35 insulin, the $2,000 out of pocket. Whenever those all get implemented, any prescription plan that would be offered to the city would have to meet those criteria. What about PPO? Can you keep your current physician? Yes, Medicare eligible, you could. Can I summarize in a simple manner what the possible changes are? Because what I said is too confusing. Well, right now there is no choice. When and if a Medicare Advantage plan with presumably Aetna or some other vendor is approved by the city, by the Municipal Labor Committee, and the arbitrator who is working with both sides, um, then there would be an option to either enroll or be enrolled in the new plan at no cost, or pay an additional cost and remain in senior care or HIP VIP. Let's see. And so we no longer have Blue Cross. We still have Blue Cross now. There is no change to your current plan. The current plan is for that most people are in. The GHI Senior Care Plan has Empire Blue Cross providing the hospital and facility charge services, Emblem Health GHI providing doctors and laboratories. If a new plan is approved, and if you choose to go into that new plan, then whichever company that is the one that will be providing your coverage. The Aetna plan, from the description I've seen, did include silver sneakers. That's traditionally something that's included in Advantage plans, but not in the senior care plan. When will we know which plan will be for retirees? When is the deadline? We don't know. We don't know what new plan is. We don't know when it would be implemented. We don't know what the implementation frame is. As soon as there is something to discuss, then we'll be back here online or in person if with the various retiree groups around the country, and be presenting the options, presenting the facts about the plans, and then seeing how things go along. It says, I mentioned only a benchmark plan for active and Medicare eligible. What about non-Medicare? Non-Medicare eligible retirees are included in the active employee class. So there are two classes, active and pre-Medicare retirees is one class, and Medicare eligible is the second. The authorizations caused opt-out. I'm expecting that there will be authorizations with any Medicare Advantage plan that comes along. That's something that Advantage includes and Medicare requires for those type of plans. Medicare currently will review your tests after the fact. Every time I get a Medicare summary notice or explanation of benefits, right there on the first page is the statement, for all services covered. And you'll say yes or no. If it says yes, I breathe a sigh of relief. If it says no, it's like, uh-oh, what am I going to get stuck with? And when I go in and see that what it is, then it's part of another plan or it's part of a special price routine, then I relax. But I would expect that Advantage would have would be having the authorization pretty much as they were before. What is it to stop the city and MLC from trying to eliminate our Medicare and IRMA in the future? The fact that everybody in the MLC will eventually become Medicare eligible, and it would have to go through city council. And I would think that the chance of a Medicare, the Part B and IRMA being eliminated or slim and none. Is city reimbursement of Part B and IRMA on the table to be eliminated? Not at this time. As I said, that's never been discussed. If the Aetna plan is more generous than the original plan, why did it come in second? I believe it was primarily due to the familiarity of the selected vendors with the city, but I was not part of that selection process, so I really, that's just from what I understand. Can we opt into new plan rather than opt out of the present plan? Sure. Whenever there is a new plan, the city will probably do what they did before, which is say effective a certain date, everybody who's Medicare eligible will be enrolled in the new plan unless you want to opt out. So by doing nothing, you opt in. We're way, it's way premature to discuss exactly how that would happen because there is no proposed new plan yet. Is there a conversation about eliminating all co-payments presently charged by senior care? No. This was clearly disclosed going forward whenever we were doing the Medicare Advantage proposals or presentations rather, and doing the comparisons. It was clearly shown that the co-pays were there, and the co-pays would be on all services. The Advantage plan was not going to charge a copay on primary care visits, but on everything else, it would cap the out-of-pocket costs. But senior care does not have that. If you stay with the current Medicare plan and which I'm assuming is senior care, and you buy up to stay in senior care, you will continue to get IRMA. There's nothing talking about getting rid of Part B or IRMA. If you choose not to be covered by a City of New York health plan, then you would lose Part B and IRMA, because as the administrative code shows, that any city Medicare eligible retiree enrolled in the city sponsored plan is entitled to full reimbursement of Part B. So if you're not covered by the city, then they're not going to give you the money. Who initiated the proposed changes? It was probably a joint venture between the city and the MLC, because like I said, what the proposed change does is codify and memorialize, if you will, what's been generally accepted practice for at least the last 30 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm not on camera because I'm driving, but exactly what you said, the proposed changes codifies what's been generally accepted practice. However, it seemed that the judge's interpretation originally did not include that as generally accepted, for the last 30 years. So his interpretation and his ruling seemed to indicate that there could not be an option that included a buy-up. And that's why they're trying to codify the language to make it clear that there can be that option. Again, if it was left to what the judge ruled initially, it would appear that he's saying that a Medicare Advantage plan can be implemented without an option or actually disallowing an option. And that's why we want to change the language so that it codifies the fact that, yes, there can be an option.
Okay, thank you. If you just keep traditional Medicare, if you've opted out already, you're going to have to do it again. How long will GHI Senior Care continue as my secondary coverage before Emblem Health takes it away if they choose to? I can't answer that because I don't know that GHI wants to take it away. There, as Mark had said, there's a possibility that if we don't modify the code, then the city could unilaterally say, this is the plan and this is what everybody has to be in. Who will be the managing company? We don't have a new plan yet, but they're currently discussing offerings with Aetna. Somebody's spouse is retired for Verizon. Will they look at other health plans like United Healthcare? United Healthcare put a bid in on the city Medicare Advantage plan originally, and were eliminated after the first review. If it goes back out for bid, then I'm sure that United Healthcare would submit a proposal. Wouldn't it be a cost saver to the city to offer Advantage plan to the younger, healthier in-service folks? Well, they do. The last round of healthcare savings required that any employee new to the city of New York, brand new hire, had to be in the HIP HMO, which is pre-Medicare, for 1 year, because that was the cheapest plan available to the city. The retention rate, the last I saw, of those who had to be in HIP who could have changed after a year is about 92%. So the younger new employees coming into work for the city are in the cheapest available health plan, which is the HIP HMO. If you stay with the plan offered, you still get IRMA, yes. Probably once Medicare is primary, can you do it without changing the code? Probably not, based on what Mark just said. You will have a choice and you will be able to pay the premium. The premium is the cost to the city. So if the cost to the city is, let's say, $400 a person, and senior care comes in at $600 a person, then you have to pay the $200 a person to be in the other plan, because that's costing the city $200 more. The only premium that you pay when you opt out is the cost difference to the city. The city's not making money on it. The MLC is not making money on it. It's just the actual cost to the city, which by opting out of what the city's offering for no premium, you agree to pay the additional cost. Will there be a side-by-side comparison of features of a new benchmark plan and current plan? Absolutely. There were drafts running around, preliminary drafts, but once, when and if anything is put into place, then we'll certainly get that out. They'll be available. We'll get it out. We'll do additional sessions to explain any differences. There is no new plan yet, so we can't do that. Yes, there'll be a cost going into it. Will thought be given to those who don't live in the New York metro area? That's always in the thought. And why we being the Office of Labor Relations and the MLC are continually looking at plans that provide national coverage. Senior care being a Medicare supplemental plan or a Medigap policy, as long as Medicare is, pays, then senior care pays. Any Advantage plan or other plan would have to have similar coverage to be able to go through and get a provider anywhere. The Empire Network, the Extended Blue Cross Network, had in network about 650,000 of the 850,000 Medicare participating providers. I have not seen any figures from Aetna, so we don't know what will be involved there. Why don't doctors want to be involved with Advantage plans? Probably because of the additional paperwork with the need to put in the approvals. I've been in a variety of plans, pre and post Medicare, that required approvals, and my doctors have never batted an eye, never had a problem doing it. But the process of doing an approval now is you want a CAT scan, this is the condition. They all know the clinical guidelines that they have to put in, and they provide that information, and as long as it meets the guidelines, the plan is approved. Okay, somebody said they don't understand what's happening, and at this point, all that's happening is a proposal to change the city's administrative code that would allow for creating a separate benchmark baseline healthcare policy for Medicare eligibles. Okay, somebody's going to be Medicare eligible in 10 months. Congratulations, there's life after 65. And drop me an email and we can have a discussion on that. Nobody can take away original Medicare. No, original Medicare is still there, whether or not it's Medicare primary with the senior care or Medicare Advantage. In the Medicare Advantage plan, the doctor gets paid once rather than twice like they do with senior care. The doctor or provider would get one payment, and it would show what Medicare's 80% was and what the supplemental Advantage plans payment was. So it's actually advantageous to them because they get paid quicker, because normally it's Medicare pays and then 2 or 3 weeks later GHI pays. So they'll get their extra 20% much quicker this way. What's the time frame of whatever's decided to be implemented? Are you looking at January of 23? Not for a new health plan, no. The earliest I could see it happening would be July of 24, or July, maybe July of 23, more likely somewhere in 24. I think we, hopefully we have learned how to do an implementation, we being the city and MLC, and we can avoid some of the pitfalls and problems that were with the last time which the plan was attempted to be implemented. Okay. MSK and special surgery, it's too early to tell with that now. You know, again, the we really, there's no way to figure the cost, see what's there until there's something to price it against. So we have to be a little bit patient and first get the approval to modify the administrative code and get that agreement done, and then work on a benchmark plan for Medicare eligibles that meets the bulk of the requirements. Will referrals for specialists be required? Most likely. What happens when you move to another state like New Hampshire? You get to have a very nice life being originally from a state next to New Hampshire. The proposed benchmark plan will work nationwide. There will be participating providers who will accept the plan in New Hampshire. If you're moving to New Hampshire, you probably don't have a doctor yet. So then you would be able to find one who was part of the network to go in there. Is approval needed for mammograms and sonograms? As long as they would be part of generally accepted medical guidelines. If there wasn't approval, it would be approved. And otherwise, there would have to be some condition that would require it being done, which the provider would document. It's a guarantee that Emblem GHI senior care will be offered at the price was previously offered. I have no way of knowing, because that was looking at a specific plan put together by Blue Cross and Emblem Health compared to their senior care offering. We don't know what the new plan, would look like if it was implemented. So until we know what that is and what the cost of the city will be, and then what the cost for senior care is at that time, that we can't make a decision until that time. What's the plan to make sure plans are well known and accepted outside New York? Again, the Empire, their parent Anthem, made extensive outreach to their providers. They contacted them by email. They sent them, videos to watch, whatever. But it's like a lot of the stuff you and I get in emails or in the mail. We have to sit down and look at it, and they may not have had a chance to do that. So we're always working to improve the implementation process, improve the communication, and try to make sure that we've learned by the last debacle. Um, Okay, we talked about living outside the area. Somebody said they had to join late. Will it be recorded? Yes, it's being recorded. And give me a couple of days to get it converted and on the website. And when I do that, I'll send along that other document from the MLC that Mark referenced to and to make sure everybody knows what that is. Will Medicare retirees have to pay additional money in 23 if you stay on your current plan? Not at this time, because there is no other plan yet. Okay, what happened to the money in the health stabilization fund? The money in the stabilization fund has been used to provide a number of benefits to all employees and retirees. For those who are active and pre-Medicare retirees, the PICA program, which covers injectable medications, is funded through the stabilization fund. If you have been participating in Weight Watchers or WW or whatever they're calling themselves these days, the city has subsidized your I guess premium or cost for doing that. The stabilization fund is used to fund active case management to make sure that if you have a condition that requires surgery, that you're getting the best surgery at the best place at the best cost, and working to ensure that your aftercare is taken care of properly. And there's also contributions to every city's welfare fund. There's $165 per active and retiree for everybody in the city that goes to welfare funds. So we get $165 for every active member and every retired member from the stabilization fund to our two funds. If that were to disappear, that would be a loss of about $1 million a year in revenue to the funds. Now we're in a position where we can withstand a short-term diminution of that contribution. But after, if it permanently went away, then we would have to look seriously at what we were doing in benefits to ensure that we could remain viable. Our in-service members are aware the health insurance can and will be changed. I don't know if it will be, but active members have a choice now. There's an awful lot of our members who live up in Connecticut, specifically, who work in the city, and all of their doctors are in Connecticut, and there's very few GHI participating providers there, and they choose to buy up to an Empire or an Aetna plan, or even a Cigna plan, so they can get participating providers where they live. Will the change apply to all city employees and retirees? Yes. We don't, like I said, we don't know the opt-out cost yet.
Can you explain equalization so
Okay.
that we understand
Okay, so
into the stabilization fund at this point?
Yeah. Okay, so the stabilization fund was created back probably over 40 years ago. And when it was created, it was at a time where the cost to the city for the HIP HMO plan, which is the benchmark, was more than the cost for the GHI senior care plan, or its predecessor plan, the GHI Type C. Hopefully not too many people are in that, but that was a plan back even, before CBP. It gave you back like $5 if you went to the doctor and you paid the balance. So what was created was what was called the stabilization fund. And what the city agreed to do was put into this fund to provide additional health benefits, the difference in cost between the HIP HMO and the senior care plan. So for many years, the HIP plan was more expensive to the city than GHI, and so money went into the stabilization fund. When cost reverse, so the GHI CBP is now more expensive than HIP HMO, then the city takes back from the stabilization fund the cost difference per person. So that's what the stabilization fund is designed to do. It's also used to provide carrier reserves for the two primary carriers for CBP, which is Emblem and Blue Cross. Those plans are governed under what's called minimum premium, which is just one step above self-funding. There's been a lot of concerns over the years. Why doesn't the city just self-fund? That's a very big risk to assume with a population the size of the city in what probably the most expensive medical cost area in the country, to say that you're going to pay all these costs without some level of insurance protection. So the minimum premium reserves are several $100 million, and this is like a buffer for the health plans. So that's why the stabilization fund is critical. If the stabilization fund drops below the amount required for the carrier reserves, then those other obligations cannot be paid from there. And somehow the city has to find a way to pay several $100 million a year of PICA costs. They have to find a way to provide the extra money to the welfare funds. The easy way for the welfare funds is to say, no, we're going to suspend this until the stabilization fund is back on its feet. So, so that's at a high level, that's how that works. There are true-ups, there are dividends, there are refunds. The formulary rebate for the PICA program, which could be several $1 million a year, go back in so that it can be used for additional benefits. And up until now, it's worked very well. But whereas the cost of healthcare goes up, then it's put a strain on the stabilization fund. The benchmark rate, the HIP HMO rate, is actually set by the state of New York, because HIP is an insured product. Emblem has to file with the New York State Department of Financial Services every year, and they're looking now at close to a 6% raise for calendar year 2024. So if your costs are going up 6% a year, you've got to find some way to help bring down some of the costs. And so that's in a nutshell what's going on with the stabilization fund. Let's see, what else we got here? Whatever plan is eventually decided upon, will there be assurances that the plan is well known in all markets, Florida, Midwest, especially? That will be part of the implementation process to make sure that whichever company, if it's Aetna, that their providing education is a bit more robust than it was the last time. Comment here. So basically, should not expect anything this side of January. No, nothing for the next year. How can the city change the terms under which I agreed to retire with regards to my health coverage? If you look at the administrative code section I provided, the city says that they will provide premium-free health care. It doesn't specify a plan. It says the city is obligated, as of now, to pay the equivalent of the HIP HMO rate. It doesn't say that it has to offer senior care. And there is nothing in the administrative code that I have seen to date that says that anything about whatever health plan you have the day you retire is the one you'll have for the rest of your life. Because if you retire pre-Medicare, you're likely in the GHI CBP plan. But when you become Medicare eligible, you go into senior care, which is a different plan. So there's nothing that says that whatever plan you have is the one you have when you for the rest of your life. It just says that you will be able to have premium-free health care, and with the modification, it will say that you have an opportunity to buy up if you do not want the benchmark plan. What are the odds of senior care being phased out? Very slim. I don't see senior care being phased out. It's a wonderful plan and there's a lot of people in favor of it. And as long as if there's a less expensive plan to the city, and you choose not to be in it, then you can buy up and remain in senior care. Okay. If you stay in the present Medicare plan, are there any penalties or disadvantages? The only penalty, if you would call it that, would be that if you want to stay in senior care and the lower cost of the city plan is determined to be the benchmark, then you would pay the additional charge to the city. Do active working members know about new retirement plans for them when it comes to Medicare? I do pre-retirement workshops several times a year. We go through the various options that are currently available. And when everything's changed, then we talk about new plans. Let's see. What is the Medicare deductible for 2023? I wish I knew. Because if I knew, I could get ready and do my preparing for Medicare workshop again. I'm waiting to find that out. I expect that we'll see that within 2 or 3 weeks when they determine the Social Security cost of living increase. That's typically when they have that out. The Medicare open enrollment period for changing your supplemental plans, I believe is October 15th to December 7th. So by October 15th, we should know what is involved. There's a comment here, which is kind of interesting. Is that why does it seem that the CSA is the only union involved in this process? I don't know. Every union in the city had a vote on modifying the administrative code. We at CSA, with Mark's leadership, and while I've been here, we have always worked to provide members with appropriate information, up-to-date information, so that they know what's going on, factual information. And, I'm sure that other unions are doing things. I heard that other unions were doing a session similar to this earlier this week. But quite frankly, I have enough to do to keep our funds working and keep our members informed that, I sometimes don't, I'm not aware of what the other funds are doing. A comment about a health and hospitals report showing problems with Medicare Advantage with denial of service. Will it have prior authorization? There will be prior authorization. With the plan that was not implemented, the approvals were to be given by clinically trained people, not the accountants. And I'm sure that we will strive to have that included in any new plan. Comment here, what will New York City do to ensure Northwell, NYU, and other New York physicians and hospitals will accept the proposed plan for cancer patients before you need to decide? The last rollout was a catastrophe. I will agree with that appraisal, and just know that we being CSA and myself, will make every effort to make sure that we don't do the same thing twice. And put together a better educational process so that all of the major players in the area and nationwide will know. When you say that Northwell didn't know what the Alliance Advantage Plan was, it may have been a particular doctor you went to who did not know, which means that it's a communication issue within Northwell, which is gigantic at this point, where those in the corporate part of Northwell had agreed to accept the plan, but hadn't been able to or hadn't sufficiently notified every single person that works for them, all 60 or 70,000. So that's something we will be working with labor relations and whoever the chosen vendor is to ensure that a better job in that is done. Somebody has Emblem Health VIP Premier HMO. You keep it if you want. Yes, that'll still be able to keep. You can still keep the HIP VIP as well as senior care. Somebody wanted the recording. I will send an email to everyone once it's on the website. You can log into our website, access our website and pull it off and watch it all you want. What happens to Medicare Part D and the Advantage Plan? It's generally included in the Advantage Plan. That was going to be the $125 charge to be in the previous Advantage Plan. So any Advantage Plan that came in would work the same way. No, I didn't say that. Somebody here says, so just to be clear, did you say if we want to stay on senior care, we will not get reimbursed for parts B and D or IRMA? No, I didn't say that at all. What I said was if you elect to stay on senior care, if and when there is a new plan, then you will pay an additional amount out of your pension for that plan. The city will continue to reimburse Medicare Part B. The city will continue to reimburse any IRMA assessment for Medicare Part B. And the Retiree Welfare Fund will continue to provide its, what do we call it, stipend, I guess, or $480 check that we call rider reimbursement. So anybody who's in a Part D plan through the city, through GHI, senior care would continue to get that. What's the cost for senior care? To you as a participant, there is no cost, only prescription drug, which is $125 per person. There still be options to change plans. I haven't heard of any discussions about grandfathering, but we can raise that with them at some point. Comment here, Medicare Advantage plans are currently subsidized by the federal government. What makes us think that the federal government will subsidize a PPO plan? Because they were subsidizing the plan that was rejected. By being under a Medicare Advantage umbrella, the plan that was not implemented, as well as the one that will be continually worked on with another vendor, is being designed with Medicare's approval under Medicare guidelines. So they already approved the idea of a PPO. So it's just a matter of getting another plan together and getting Medicare approval. Again, time frame, there is none at this point. Approved medications changed this year from last year. Will that change back? That's changed by Medicare every year. They determine the formulary of medications they'll cover. That's usually available in mid-November. So if it gets to be mid-November, let me know. I'll see if I can find that for you and get it to you. Emblem may have it then. Should you keep all the materials that sent to you regarding the old plan? That wouldn't be necessary because unless you're building an archive of failed health plans, the materials that from the old plan, they're obsolete because that plan is not being implemented. So, clear out that file and get a new one ready. Did the judge say senior care couldn't be an additional cost to remain? The judge, that's what the judge said with the way the administrative code is written today. The way the administrative code is written today, it says that the city will pay the equivalent of will pay the HIP HMO rate for everybody. The HIP HMO rate is obviously more than $191.57. So since the buy-up, the senior care wasn't more than the HIP rate, that's why the court said that you couldn't be charged. The proposed modifications would address that situation. With the change to administration code, you're advocating to allow retirees to keep traditional Medicare with Emblem as secondary. We're not advocating anything. What we're saying is that it's important to the long-term viability of healthcare for actors and retirees and Medicare eligible retirees in the city of New York, that this change be made. And part of that reason is it will preserve the option to have a choice. If this is not done, then at some point the city could come in unilaterally and attempt to just say, we're not going to offer senior care, we're going to offer whatever plan, and that's just it, take it or leave it. So that's part of why we're doing this. Did UFT vote in favor of this new amendment, or was it just CSA? UFT voted for it, DC 37 voted for it. A majority of the MLC constituent unions voted for it. It was not unanimous, but it was a clear majority to go forward. Why aren't we using the data we have of the majority of retirees who don't want MAP and continue to ignore our wishes? I don't know where that data comes from. The last figure I saw from the previous attempt at implementing a Medicare Advantage plan said that about between 60 and 65,000 retirees had opted out. But the population who were eligible to opt out were 250,000. So it's not a majority, it's a number of retirees that don't. And that is part of the reason, and a major reason, that what we are working to do is allow you to have that choice. You will have the choice to say, no, I do not want the premium-free health plan that I'm entitled to. I want to pay extra to stay in this other plan. This is a long one. I was just talking about the denial of services, and I'm sure that going forward, there will be the same mechanism set up with any new plan that was offered, that was going to be in place for the failed plan, and that was a group, a joint committee of labor relations and MLC representatives that would review in detail things like rejection rates and all, to make sure that proper care was being provided and it wasn't just done to try to save money.
Doug, the number that I received as far as voting for the changed administrative code was 85% of the unions voted for it. And to the question about ignoring what people wish, again, if things were to stand the way they are currently without a change to the administrative code, that's when there is the real strong possibility of the city coming in and saying, we will no longer offer senior care, period. And here is the new plan that we will offer, period. And we're trying to avoid that.
Right, thank you. What happens when you move to some type of vend plan, your doctor and hospitals don't sign up for it? Well, you need to find other doctors. If my understanding is, if it's the same as the plan that was attempted before, was that as long as the provider accepts Medicare, you could go to that provider, use that provider, and the health plan would pay that provider. You might have to pay some money up front and then to have the plan reimburse you, but there are strict federal guidelines for how soon those reimbursements have to come, typically within 30 days. So, you know, that would have to be worked out. It's just not understanding, will there be senior care in the new plan? The new plan, any new plan would be in addition to senior care. What happens if the vendor backs out after the contract's signed? If a vendor is chosen to provide a new plan and a contract signed and then backed out, there are early termination penalties that are there. If the city decides to back out, there would be penalties due to the city. And it's typically, I believe the last one was going to be a 5-year contract. So it's something that would be a relatively long-term effort. Okay, question here, would you please clarify the groups of retiree and premium for that group? And dates of group based on date of retirement. The groups that are being addressed in the change to the administrative code are just 2 groups. In-service, active employees, and pre-Medicare retirees as one group, and Medicare eligible retirees as the second group. There's no, or I haven't seen any discussion to date based on the retirement date or whatever. It's just, are you Medicare eligible or non-Medicare eligible retiree or active? Okay, so please clarify, if you opt out of any new plan but stay in senior care or in another New York City sponsored plan, you will continue to have your Medicare Part B and IRMA reimbursements. If you have dependents, we have to pay an extra cost to keep them on emblem. No. If you, you know, because that's what they're on now, and that would be a benchmark plan for pre-Medicare. If you opt out, you would only have to pay the money for you or a spouse partner who's Medicare eligible. Was it ever considered that this be implemented for currently active members and newly hiring people, newly retiring people? And those are just currently stay in Medicare. No, I wasn't privy to any of those conversations. Has the change of administrative code been agreed upon by the MLC and the city? The city has agreed to this. The MLC has agreed to it. The draft letter of agreement was in the email I sent regarding the with the link. What has to happen now is the city council has to address this. It's my understanding that it has to be heard by two separate city council meetings. So there would be one in presumably October, another in November. There will likely be some hearings for testimony. So that's where we are there. If you keep original Medicare and keep drugs, the question is about the insulin savings program that has been voluntary for a couple of years, and now it's my understanding it's going into effect in for everybody mandatory in 2023. I haven't seen any specifications yet. If you will drop me an email, I'll go to Emblem and see if I can get some clarity on that, or if they even know yet. Comment, yes, it's, this is a bit premature to talk about a new plan because, you know, we don't even have a vendor or have anything on concrete. I'm just trying to address the concerns people have of what they've heard. Our welfare funds are in excellent shape financially. I wasn't going to mention it here. I was going to wait for the blurb in the October newsletter, but beginning January of 2023, we're increasing our optical benefit by $50 a person per year. The chapter supplement will remain. We're going to partner with General Vision Services, and you will, as always, because it's CSA, you won't have to use a General Vision store. They will administer the benefit. You will be able to go to any place you want to buy your glasses or contacts and submit to them. They will pay. We'll pay them with one check, and then we'll do the supplemental. Will there be only one map provider? Most likely. I don't know that, you know, I would love to be able to do this, provide this in an FAQ. I'll see if I can put together something later. It'll take a while to do that. But, you know, because I obviously can't be taking notes while I'm talking. I can do two things at once. I can breathe and talk, but breathe, talk, and write, and keep a train of thought is pushing it these days. TRICARE, I assume, will have the same opt-out provisions as the previous Advantage plan. Okay, what else we got here? If you try a new plan, whatever it may be, will you be able to leave it after a year? Yes. One of the things the city agreed to a year ago in offering the Advantage plan was that the transfer period would be every year for retirees rather than every other year. So in November of this year, if you wish to change your health plan, you can submit a health benefits application to the city, and the change will take effect January 2023. Let's see, so what do you mean when I say senior care? Senior care is the Medicare supplemental plan called a Medigap policy for those who are primary under Medicare. It's generally known as the GHI Senior Care Plan, even though Empire is involved with it. If you opt in, can you later opt out and back and forth? Yes, you can do that once every year. How do you know if you have senior care? If you look at your Emblem Health ID card and you're over 65, it should say senior care on it. Are the lawsuits moot now? Not really. You know, the lawsuits are going to continue, and you know, the city's appeal of the March decision and the retiree groups of counter appeals and all those will all still be worked through. How do Advantage plans save the city money? Because they're known as Medicare Advantage plan, Medicare subsidizes the cost very greatly. And that's how the city saves money. And of course, the government through Medicare says, here's some money, we'll help subsidize the cost, but these are the parameters we have to work within. So saving the city money means that they have to implement a plan that will have some minimal approval. It'll be approvals for testing, not for providers. Traditional Medicare Advantage plans, the ones that Jimmy Walker and Joe Namath, bless his soul, advertise on TV now, those require generally approvals to see any specialist, require you to pick a primary doctor, and every little thing needs approval. The plans the city put together within the Medicare Advantage framework would allow you to see any provider, any specialist you want without a referral. And only the expensive type of tests, CAT scans, MRIs, those tests would require approvals, and the approvals would be reviewed based upon clinical guidelines, not how much money it costs. Let's see. Question here. Mark just said that the change in the administrative code is to allow that there can be an option. That means the city must offer the other option for purchase. The understanding now is that once the code is modified, that senior care will continue to be offered as an option at additional cost. That's part of the joint agreements. Yeah, and I think I've addressed this, the different types of Advantage plans. We're looking at one that is out-of-network doctors. That's the PPO as opposed to an HMO. An HMO style Medicare Advantage plan means that you have to use their doctors, their participating doctors. PPO says that as long as the doctor takes Medicare, you can go there. And as I said before, there's limited authorizations rather than every little thing needing to be approved. Why doesn't the MLC and city try to read through the original plan with only GHI and Emblem? This person has a lot of concerns about Aetna. The major thing is that GHI and Emblem are not nationwide insurance companies. GHI and its parent Emblem Health are New York City, New York area, greater New York specific health plans. That's why if you're pre-Medicare retiree and you move to North Carolina or Georgia or Texas or even Florida, it's very difficult, if impossible, to find a participating GHI doctor because they don't know about it down there. You need to have a company with a nationwide network and nationwide presence in order to offer a plan for New York City retirees. It needs to be that, and GHI Emblem don't have the market penetration to do that. Why don't I share the data of the number of people who opted out from the first offer? We just talked about that. Does the Inflation Reduction Act impact negotiations? I haven't seen anything about that. If you still get IRMA, what would be the advantage of switching? If you're talking about switching your city health plan, if you go with a new benchmark plan, then you have no cost for that other than probably the prescription benefit. If you stay with senior care, you'll still have the prescription cost, plus you'll have the additional cost to the city. Do I anticipate having a timeline of when the new plan will be available? Is it likely to be in 2022? Well, it's not going to be implemented this year. I can guarantee you that. I have no idea where we are with the negotiations. I haven't been involved in that part. But I would expect that if there is going to be an effort for a new plan, it would there would be some discussion and some approvals of that early in 2023, looking to a January 1 of 24 implementation date. Why are copays being charged when this is not decided on? The copays on senior care was a completely separate issue. Copays on senior care were agreed upon between the city and the MLC just pre-COVID. They were supposed to be implemented January 1 of 2020, right in the middle of COVID, or actually 1/1 of 21. And so No, they were supposed to go in 20, they were postponed. They were put in this year with the expectation that the Advantage plan would be coming on at the same time. That didn't happen, so the copays are still there. You need to complete Part D if you want to stick with the current plan. If you're retiring in February, drop me an email, we'll talk and make sure we do things correctly. What about CSA benefits? We talked about that. Time frame, you switch back and forth every year. Would retirees not on Medicare eligible stay with Emblem Health? That would be a possibility, and then move over. There would likely be a provision for those, if you are Medicare eligible and have a non-Medicare eligible dependent, spouse, partner, or child, that there would be a pre-Medicare version of the plan. That's something that would still need to be negotiated. The cost for a married couple to opt out of the previous plan would be about $400 a month. That's true. I have no idea what the new cost will be because we have to see what the new plan will cost. We've answered the question about doctors. It's a change of foregone conclusion. I don't know. It's in the hands of City Council at this point, and I'm not well enough versed to know how they're leading these days. Comment here, it's not Medicare, its name is misleading, it's private for-profit insurance. Please explain. Well, you know, every insurance plan is provided by an insurance company. Emblem Health happens to be not-for-profit. Empire Blue Cross, which has been our partner for years, for decades, is now a for-profit insurance company. Medicare is subsidizing the cost, paying insurance companies to administer the benefit, because most likely it's cheaper for them to do that than it is to invest in the infrastructure themselves. If they have a plan that is going to cover 1 million lives and take care of everything and process all the claims, that's 1 million lives worth of primary claims. They don't have to invest in the staff and the resources to pay. So that's why it still is Medicare. Medicare is contributing to that, what they would normally pay. Doctors don't make more if they participate in the Advantage plan than if they didn't. You pay the same amount, either out of pocket or through your supplemental coverage. It's just that everything is put in with everything is put into one with a Medicare Advantage. Like I said, there'll be an opt-out every year. IRMA is the income-related Medicare adjustment amount. What that is if your gross income 2 years ago was over a certain amount, then Medicare says you have to pay more. It can be from $50 more to several $100s more, but considering it's all part of Part B, then the city reimburses it. Doctors complain Medicare Advantage takes longer to pay and pay less than Medicare. I'm not aware of that. The commitment from the previous plan was to be paid within 30 days, which meets the federal guidelines. The problem for the first plan I'm referring to, that was the Medicare Advantage plan with Emblem and Empire that was originally attempted. The implementation was a bit wonky. in my opinion. For example, I wanted to see if my providers were going to accept the plan. And I had to go about 3 pages into a website and click on the little blue phrase that said find care. And that took me to a provider search function. But the only way I could figure out how to do it was to indicate that I live in Nassau County and then do an alphabetical search. And my primary care doctor his last name starts with the letter S. So it was very difficult to find him. I really want to spend 5 minutes scrolling down, 3,000 providers to find that. And also just the provider education was a bit strange. And I think that the support of people asking questions on the toll-free number was also a bit lacking. Any dental care, I don't know what's going to be in the Advantage plan. There was dental in the previous one. Quite often, the dental that's included is very basic care, such as a couple of, maybe 2 cleanings, 2 exams. All of our CSA welfare fund plans allow for 4 cleanings, 1 every 3 months, and 2 exams. And so, we really have a better benefit there. If you wanted to go and have one, more in between there, then that would certainly be available. But anything major, even fillings, you'd probably have a 50% charge, if not more. Does GHI cover care, including hospitalization by MSK? GHI doesn't cover hospital coverage. That's why there's basically a bifurcated plan, which is Empire covering hospitals and skilled nursing facilities or rehab, and GHI covering doctors and laboratories. That was sort of what was going to be continued with the previous Advantage plan, but they do for some of their smaller commercial groups provide hospital coverage, but again, it's local to this area. I'm guessing they would include MSK, but I have no way of knowing because I'm more focused on the city coverage. There is no doctor survey yet on this that I know of. Why should you switch rather than wait a year? Well, there's nothing to switch to at this point. So whenever there is some new plan, you can certainly opt out for a year if you can afford it. See how everything goes, and then if things are going well, opt in. Or conversely, you can give it a try. If you're not happy with it after the first year, you can opt out and pay the additional charge to stay in senior care. Are Blue Cross and Emblem totally out of the picture? For an Advantage plan, they would be, because they had the plan, they had the original proposal accepted, and because Empire had their ultimatum and backed out, then that plan is done. GHI and Blue Cross will continue to provide the CBP plan for pre-Medicare. They'll continue to provide the senior care plan. It's just that if there is a new Medicare Advantage plan that would become a benchmark, it would be by somebody other than those 2 vendors. Yeah, the Advantage plan would be nationwide, other than New Hampshire, yes, even North Carolina. North Carolina was my first choice to move to when I retired, but my wife said, I've got 2 kids on Long Island, I have to stay. If I said that referrals to specialists under the defunct map were required, that is not true. The difference between the original Advantage plan proposed and the traditional Medicare Advantage HMO base was that our proposed plan did not require referrals to specialists. Insurance companies required to have doctors review approvals. The original plan had a requirement to be by clinically trained staff, and I'm sure, I'm almost sure that it'll be the same way. Here's my favorite question of the day. Thank you. When is the Irma check coming? Irma reimbursements will start in October. They come from the city. They'll be direct deposited to the account when you get your pension. They traditionally do these the third Friday of the month. I haven't looked ahead far enough to know what day that is. But if by chance it doesn't come then, don't worry, because it'll come the next month or in December. The city does 10 to 15,000 of these a year, and they have a very limited staff, maybe 2 people working on it. And all they do is work on Irma reimbursement. So if you haven't submitted it yet, then it'll probably be in the following month that you would get it. Okay, I clarified the specialist. Why did CSA vote yes and other unions such as PSC vote no? You've heard why CSA voted yes. I have no idea why PSC voted no. But I do know that PSC generally is in favor of national health care, or what they call colloquially or commonly referred to as Medicare for all. So anything that is not Medicare for all or national health care, universal health care, is something they don't want to be part of, or they would vote against. So that's my personal guess. I have no idea. My CUNY friends can correct me if I'm wrong. Do Medicare eligible retirees still have access to the welfare fund for dental and other coverage? Yes, absolutely. We're not going anywhere, and we're going to continue doing what we've been doing. And a lot of questions about grandfathering, we addressed that. What is required at the current time is to sit tight and await further information. Yes. Everything stays the way it is. Yes. I know it's hard not to do anything, but this is one time to just sit back and wait. If the city council passes the proposal, is the mayor likely to sign the bill? That's my understanding, but I don't know for sure. I think he probably would back it. Is senior care a destination for GHI senior care? Yes. Another question about referrals. If Empire is opted out, will Express Scripts still provide prescription drugs until a new plan? Yes. Express Scripts is the chosen vendor of Emblem Health, and Emblem Health provides the prescription benefit for all the GHI and the HIP and the senior care plan. Question about paying an upcharge because you live outside of Greater New York, and you know, person's paying $300 a month for Empire for secondary insurance. One of the benefits that the welfare fund has is what we call our stop loss benefit. And what it does is after $1,000 of unreimbursed healthcare costs, the next $1,250 we reimburse at 80%, then we reimburse at 100% to a maximum of $50,000 a year, $250,000 a lifetime. So this person who's living in Vermont, who spends most of her time in Vermont, also a good choice. You know, if you're there and you want to stay with GHI, only pay for the prescription drug costs, your per person medical expenses would be $1,250 a year. So if you're paying $315 per month now, I assume for an individual, you're paying $3,600 a year for the privilege of then paying a copay to the Empire doctor. If you were to switch back to GHI CBP, you would save that $315 a month, You just have to have a different mindset so that when you went into the doctor, if the doctor charged $200, you'd have to pay the $200 and after the deductible, get back like $39. But if it's a $200 charge and you get back $39, you're $161 towards the $1,000 deductible. So if you'd like to talk about this more, just drop me an email. We'll arrange a time to talk. How does this impact drug costs? It has no real effect on drug costs. Okay. Somebody's having cataract removal. Congratulations. The two lenses you're referring to, this is not administrative code, but I'll answer the question since you got me here and I got you there. The standard lenses used in cataract surgery have been around for over 30 years. And they're single vision. So you get a lens replaced and then quite often need glasses for either distance or close up. The more expensive lenses are known as toric, T-O-R-I-C, or multifocal lenses. And they claim that if you have one of those put in, you won't need to use glasses. The idea is that it's a bifocal lens that's implanted in your eye. Up until 7 or 8 years ago, Medicare would only pay the equivalent of a single vision lens, would not pay anything towards that. Now they pay the equivalent of a single vision lens. So there is a difference in cost. And in this case, it's $2,200 per eye. A welfare fund benefit will reimburse $500 of that to you, $500 per eye, once in a lifetime. All we would need to see is a copy of the surgeon's bill showing the extra charge, and then we can reimburse the $500. If you opt out of the plan to keep current Medicare plan, is cost deducted automatically from your pension by TRS? Yes, that's how it works. A question about dividing classes of employees from the active and pre-Medicare and the Medicare. Does it mean that only Medicare eligible retirees have to adapt to a MAP or pay a premium to keep current care? At this time, if there is a Medicare Advantage plan in that becomes the benchmark, then that would apply there. I would expect that the next thing the city would work on is trying to see if they can come up with a high quality health plan, which costs them a little less for the active and pre-Medicare. And if that is done with the language that's being proposed, they could then say that that plan was the benchmark. And then those who would keep CBP or some other plan conceivably would then have to pay a little extra. Who's voting on the new plan? The vote would be by the Municipal Labor Committee, and the Office of Labor Relations has to sign off on it. Will the Blue Cross Medicare related plan that's been offered for years continue? That's my understanding. There was an effort when they first were looking at putting in the Advantage plan to do away with those, but I think they've given up on that now. What about dental? We talked about dental. Would it be possible to put a cap on senior care monthly increases? That has not come up in discussion yet. Okay. And, a new plan, if it adopted similar to the one that was originally attempted, the design is a PPO, so that any doctor who would accept Medicare, you could go to. Um, It makes it easier on you. You can keep your doctor, you just might have to pay the doctor beforehand. Do I think the plan will be contested? I don't know what the plan is until it's there. Um, And we have to see what is proposed and see what the resulting of the court litigation is. Um, Will New York City try to tier retiree health benefits the way TRS tiered pension benefits moving forward? That's not my understanding. My understanding is just the categories that we talked about. We talked about being able to switch back and forth. Good comment here. One problem last year was the information shared with us was from different agencies. And often there was conflicting info. How would this be rectified? We being CSA will recommend strongly that there be a consistent messaging. When you see Empire of this state, Empire of that state, Alliance, whatever, it gets very confusing, even for those of us who do this for a living. So we will work to make sure that we can get that consistent messaging. What happens to elderly retirees who don't have access or can't access email, social media, etc.? How are they going to be supported through this? There are many 90-plus-year-old retirees. I fully understand that. So that when there is something new, along with doing an email, we will also do a mailing. When the previous Medicare Advantage plan was first approved, the afternoon it was approved, we had a 7-page mailing at the printer waiting to go out. We did other mailings. There was an update after some of the court case hearings in December last year, and we had a letter out immediately on that, both on the website, and then we also did a mailing. All the retirees we had addresses for. We try to keep up to date with addresses. People sometimes forget to tell us when they move. So eventually, hopefully we got it to everybody. Which, allow me to plug, please, if you're moving, let us know. You can tell TRS, you can tell Social Security, but if you let the welfare fund know, we will let the retiree chapter know if you're a retiree chapter member, and we'll also notify the City Office of Labor Relations, who will notify your health plan. And we'll document when we send that over, so if they don't do it, we can send it to them again and beat them up and tell them to change your address. So we make every effort to do that. The lag time in getting materials printed and mailed is a couple of weeks usually. But anything important always gets mailed, as well as email. Are you looking at other plans that are not Emblem or Empire? Because right now there's a large group of doctors and hospitals in Florida that as of October 1st will leave the Empire network. I wasn't aware that the group was leaving Empire. If it's a PPO plan, you can still use them. And yeah, one of the big goals in the whole process is to find a company that has nationwide access. Can you stay with the spouse's drug plan with his local and senior care now? Yes, you can do that now. If you decide to go to the Advantage plan later, you'll have to go in the drug plan with that. Best cost, best senior care. I have no idea, but I would guess it'll be close to what was done before. How many CSA members opted out? I quite honestly forget. I saw a figure one time. We weren't number one. Um, but we weren't number 102 either. We were in the middle, a few hundred, if I remember correctly. Talked about Irma. Are retirees living out of New York considered in the proposed plan? Yes, it'll be a nationwide plan with nationwide coverage. I'm watching as a UFT retiree and my partner's CSA Link. Is the UFT actively involved in the negotiations? I'm sure they are. To the point of what's involved with them and what they're doing, I don't know, but I'm sure that Mr. Mulgrew is actively involved. Okay, Part D in the optional rider. Medicare Part D is the prescription drug plan benefit. Everybody who is 65 or over has to be covered by a qualifying Medicare Part D plan. The city, as long as I've been around, which is again 30 years, has never provided prescription drugs as part of its basic health plan, even though the Affordable Care Act says that prescription drugs are an essential benefit. It's always been available either through a welfare fund, like we do for our active in-service members, or through the optional benefits rider to your health plan. So if you're Medicare eligible, and you say yes to the optional benefits, that is giving you the PHI enhanced Part D drug plan. If you didn't do that and you're in senior care, you're still able to go buy a drug plan from some other third party. But if you later join an Advantage plan, you'll have to be in the drug plan that comes with that. The reason being is that Medicare subsidizes drug costs, but they'll only do it once. If you're in an Advantage plan, which they're already subsidizing, they'll subsidize the drug plan as part of that. If you're in a different standalone drug plan, they'll subsidize you there. But when they see Doug Hathaway is in two different drug plans, they're liable, they will drop me from one of those plans. It may not be the standalone drug plan, it may be the one associated with my health care, at which point I have no Medicare supplemental plan. Are Invisalign braces covered by the welfare fund? Yes, they're considered orthodontics. Emergency care and ambulance, those would be covered by any plan. And if there's a limit on that, the welfare fund is a $2,500 a year per person transportation benefit. Would you have problems with coverage by opting out if you have a pre-existing condition? We're how many hours into this? And that was the first pre-existing condition question. Thank you. That would not be a problem. You cannot be denied coverage anymore due to a pre-existing condition. For future webcasts, is it possible to have closed captions? I'll look into that with Zoom. And I thank you for reminding me of that. Could you use the CSA welfare drug dental plan in addition to Medicare Advantage out of the state? Sure. You could use both. Yes, you can still submit your IRMA form. The city gives you 3 years to do it. So there's still plenty of time. If somebody's new to Medicare, just drop me an email and we'll help you get whatever forms you need. We don't know the additional cost to stay in the city plan in senior care now. How far back will the stop loss plan do? Cataracts, we can go back 12 months. with a monthly charge for drugs be counted towards the 2,000 maximum in 25. I haven't seen any change for the the premium charge you pay for the drug plan won't count towards the out-of-pocket maximums. If you need hearing aids, let me know. We'll get a voucher for you and send you, and then we can talk about getting you reimbursed. Is there a way of knowing if a submitted IRMA application was received? If you sent it in through us, drop me an email. I'll make sure we have it. If you send it directly to the city, you probably just have to wait until you get that. Yeah, you can opt in back and forth. Transportation. Transportation is covered by the welfare fund if your Medicare and Medicare supplement don't cover it. One of the things that is never covered is non-emergency ambulance. You've been in the hospital, they're transferring you to a rehab facility or skilled nursing center for continued recovery. They insist you go in an ambulance. Nobody's paying for that. We'll reimburse 80% of that. You get to the point where you need the ambulance to come pick you up and take you back and forth to doctor visits. We can reimburse that. We reimburse 80% of the cost after a $100 deductible, up to a maximum of $2,500 a year. Okay, guess what? I think we're at the point of the old joke about somebody said that they went through, they found the end of the internet. And I think I've found the end of the questions. And so I thank you for your patience as I work through these. It looks like there were close to 300 questions. Some of them were duplicates, so I do appreciate your time. If there are no more questions, I'll give you the rest of your afternoon back. Hopefully you can get out, catch an early bird, get some fresh air. Look in your email boxes, probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. You'll get an email from me, actually from the welfare fund, from Webmaster, from our mailing. I'll use the mailing service, and it will indicate that the link for this session is up on the website. The two documents I referred to here will be there, and also the MLC document that Mr. Canizero referenced will also be there. So let me just check. I said no more questions, and here's a couple more. Thank you. Okay, like thank you. One last question. Express Scripts is covered with Emblem Health, or you have to pay additional for it. The prescription plan is a pension deduction. Currently, it's $125 per person if you're Medicare eligible. Last year it was $150.30. This year it went down to $125. I have no idea yet what it will be for 2023. I was going to say 22, but that's what we are now. It'll be 2023. And as soon as we know what it is, we'll let everybody know. So if that's it, I will say thank you. Thank you for your time, your patience. And for those who are members of various retiree units, I'm convinced now that the COVID curse is broken, because I think every retiree unit in the country wants me to come say hello. And I'm more than happy to. And so when we do get together again, maybe there'll be some updates. We'll talk about this for those who weren't on today. And as always, please remember to give the Welfare Fund a call, generally between, say, 8:30 and 4 o'clock, quarter after 4. After being on the phones all day, people are pretty much fried and need to just tidy things up before they go. We are always here to help you and take care of you, because you earned everything you're getting. You earned wonderful retirement. And we're all lining up, ready to join you. So I'm going to stop the recording now.